Hey BookTube, I know it's been a while, but here I am again in my old stomping grounds, in my beautiful library room, and it's got most of my books on here, and this will be a continuation of my shelf tour. I've done the previous two videos. It's an updated shelf tour. I did two videos before. I did more of a modern history shelf that I have, and then the other shelf was a combination of ancient history and also like medieval chivalry history. So you think the next shelf would be medieval works just in general, but it's not the case. It's not how I set it up. So the next shelf is more Enlightenment and Reformation history, which is kind of weird to have together. I understand that, but it's just how my shelf uh, organization has kind of collected because I don't have enough Reformation and I don't have enough Enlightenment books to command their own shelves, and they kind of just work together in the way that I've constructed my shelves. And after that, then I'll do a separate video on the next shelf, which is medieval literature or medieval books, history books, just all across the board, and including, of course, some Renaissance books in there as well, which I do usually include in medieval, in my medieval shelves, just in general. But anyways, without further ado, we have a lot of books to get through. I have, as usual, when I talk about my shelves, I have books stacked in front, and then I have the actual shelf that we can go through. I think what I'll do is I'll go through the Reformation type books first. So we'll start off with probably the oldest Reformation book that I have. It's The Reformation by Owen Chadwick. I can't really see that. See, what if I turned on my lamp here? Does that make things a little bit better? Let's see. Yeah, I think so. We'll see. That's The Reformation by Owen Chadwick, and it's got a really nice, just wraparound cover with artwork all around. I don't know if this is an original artwork piece or where it's from, but it's really nice. And this book, this is a history book in the Penguin, or the Pelican series that Penguin used to do, and it was published first in 1964, so it's a Reformation book from the 60s. I have an idea that I would like to read my Reformation books roughly in the era, in the time they were published. So I'd read like books from the 60s first, and then just continue on like that. Even though I know that maybe that is not the most conducive way to go through it, but I don't know, it's just how I've kind of set it up in my mind. Then we go to one of the most popular books in the Reformation. This is Dermot McCullough's Reformation. It's just called Reformation, and the subtitle is Europe's House Divided, 1490 to 1700. And I think this was published in the early 2000s, and yeah, it is in 2003. So it's a nice little brick of Reformation history. And then we move on to not quite Reformation history, but it's part of religious conflict and war and tension after the Reformation, and so I just included in Reformation history. And it's the 30 Years' War by C.V. Wedgwood. And this is kind of an odd design here, because it's got a black and white illustration that's colored in circles here. So then we got a pink and then red and then yellow circle, but it doesn't really go on into the whole picture. But this is also from either the 50s or the 60s, I believe. Oh no, I was wrong. 1938 is when it was first published. So C.V. Wedgwood, I've heard good things about this historian before, and I've also heard of good things of Dermot McCullough, but I've heard of good things from this author too. That she's a classic historian, like a really good, just good to read, just in general. not just to read her books just to learn the history, but you're actually encountering a person on the page. But we'll see. That's the only book of hers that I have. I guess we'll move on to the next books here. This is the most recent addition to this shelf, and it's Mark Greengrass's Christendom Destroyed, and it's Europe 1517 to 1648, and it's one of those penguin orange spine books, which I really liked the design of. The Dermot McCullough isn't quite like that, but yeah, this is post-Reformation, or it doesn't counter, like 1517 is basically Reformation period, but he's focusing more on the religious tensions that resulted of the Reformation. I'll read the blurb here because it's just a few sentences. It says, "The years following the Reformation were a time of tumultuous change as Europe was torn apart. Christendom Destroyed is the rich, compelling history of an era that saw spiritual and intellectual upheaval, savage wars and revolution, yet also the birth of Europe as we know it." And then we get a nice little photo of the author there. And then we go to an author that, if you read history, you certainly know of. It's Peter Ackroyd, and this is his book on the Tudors. And it says that the history of England from Henry VIII to Elizabeth I. And yeah, it's just a nice paperback of his book on the Tudors. I believe he's got a whole series, like a three-book series on the history of Britain, from the beginnings to, I think, the Tudors, or maybe the Tudors is his second volume. I don't actually know for sure, because I believe I have his volume 1, his book, I think it's called Foundations. I have that book as an ebook, and then maybe this is volume 2 or volume 3, I really don't know. And then we have a book called Elizabeth's London, and this is by Lisa Picard, and it just says Everyday Life in Elizabethan London. And that's exactly what it looks like. It's just a history of London during Queen Elizabeth's time. I do like the frontispiece here. We actually got some kind of cool design. And this book itself was published in 2003. And then I'll move on to the actual shelf of Reformation books. Well, let's see. So the first book is not technically just Reformation. It's kind of in between. It's Why Can the Dead Do Such Great Things by Robert Bartlett. And it's got a nice golden dust jacket there. It's a beautiful publication. It's by Princeton University Press. And then the subtitle here says Saints and Worshippers from the Martyrs to the Reformation. And it's a study of the Catholic worship of the saints. And it goes all the way up to the Reformation, because of course the Reformation drastically changed a lot of, or I don't know if drastically, but it significantly changed Catholic practice, because worship of the saints was one of the things the enemies to the Catholic Church objected to. And this is Robert Bartlett's book on the subject. There is a book I have as an ebook. Peter Brown writes a book on the exact same subject, and so I'm interested into reading those and seeing how they approach the same subject in different ways, especially since Peter Brown is basically like a superstar historian of this time period. So, but Robert Bartlett is no slouch himself. He's got a lot of great books on the medieval era and religion and politics. So it'll be interesting to read both of those. Then we have a book that I never actually knew existed until I saw it used at a used bookstore, and it's The European Reformations, and it's by Carter Lindbergh, and it's one of those Blackwell books. It's an oversized paperback, and Blackwell is, or at least they used to be, well, they still exist, but not as what they used to be, where they published really interesting scholarship from different languages, and this is a British publisher. And like this book for sure, well, I guess maybe this one wasn't published in a different language, but that's how I usually know them by. But it was first published in 1996, and it's just it's exactly that. It's a history of reformations in Europe during this time. And they're usually geared as textbooks, but I find that they can be read on their own because they are not your normal textbook. And yeah, so that's this book. Then we move on to another so-called textbook. It's a short history of Renaissance and Reformation Europe, and it's by Jonathan Zopfi, and it's the subtitle here says "Dances Over Fire and Water." And we've got a pretty neat illustration there up front, and it is another one of those oversized books. This one is also double columned, but it's very well illustrated, which I don't think the Blackwell book is. Let's see if I can find. They're all black and white illustrations, but yeah, illustrations, and it's double columned. And I like picking up books like this. It's by an author I've never heard of, and it's, how is he going to treat the subject differently than, say, someone else would, especially since he's condensing Renaissance and Reformation history together in a fairly slim volume, even with the double columns. Then we get into some actual, scholarly books on the subject, not just textbooks. This is The Age of Reformation, 1250 to 1550, and it's by Stephen Osmond. And this is a classic in the field of Reformation studies. It says, an intellectual and religious history of late medieval and Reformation Europe. And this is a reprint volume. It was originally published a long time ago, 1980, by Yale University Press. And then this is a reprint, I think, basically 40 years later. So, but it's a very nice designed reprint. And it's got a introduction, or a foreword, by Carlos Eyre, who is the author of the next book on my shelf, Carlos Eyre's book on the Reformations. It's Reformations plural, and the subtitle here is The Early Modern World, 1450 to 1650. So, it takes a conceptual idea of this one. This one is 1250 to 1550. This one goes later than that, so 1450, but then it goes later, goes into the 17th century. And I heard a lot of praise for this book, and I hear that he is also one of those authors who is, you read this book not just for the history, but for the author himself, because he is a good writer and an entertaining historian, just in how he writes and presents his history. So, yeah, we got that book. Then we have a book that is very intriguing to me. We'll see how it stands up, but it's The Unintended Reformation by Brad Gregory, and the subtitle here is How a Religious Revolution Secularized Society. So then you have all the main players of the Reformation, or at least, maybe? I actually don't know. I know that's Martin Luther there, but this could be, well, you just got the Reformation type presentation here, contrasted with the modern photo of a city. And this book takes an interdisciplinary approach where he tries to argue that the result of the Reformation and the split of the Christian world ended up in secularization. And just so you know, the author is a Catholic, so there is vested interest in that here. But I hear that he is a good historian just in general, so it'll be smartly done. It's not going to be dumb, I don't think. But he, I've listened to a couple of his lectures on this book, and he makes the point of trying to cross disciplines, and what he means by that, from what I understand, is that he thinks that when you have just historians that are so exclusively focused on their own expertise, without any kind of overall picture, then it can be hard to draw vast lines of thought like this, where he tries to trace secularization through directly from the Reformation. Yeah, and he has. I think it's like partly a study of like economics and whatever in here too, because he takes modern consumerism as an aspect of a product of the Reformation. So I'm not entirely sure. I know I butchered that explanation, but it's the best I could give from my previous knowledge of it, because I have not read that book yet. Then we go to another famous, or not famous, but more popular book, but one that I'm very interested in. It's Fatal Discord, and it's by Michael Massing, and it's Erasmus, Luther, and the Fight for the Western Mind. Very provocative subtitle there, and also a beautiful cover design. You got the title here, subtitle here, and then a painting here. And it's a nice big chunkster. It's like 1,000 pages of basically a dual biography of Erasmus and Luther, and how their ideas clashed during the Reformation period, and what that meant for the Western mind going forward, and the realm of ideas. Because if you don't know, Luther was a very radical figure in what he was advocating for, and Erasmus was more advocating for change but within the system, while Luther was looking for a complete revolution away from the system, and the system being, of course, the Catholic Church and its dominancy over religious life in Europe at the time. And we move into some very a lot more specific histories of the Reformation. We got The King's Reformation by G.W. Bernard, and this is Henry VIII and the Remaking of the English Church. So this is Reformation history from an English perspective. And the next 5 books will be all on the same subject. So this is the first one. It's a nice big chunkster from Yale. Because the next book is a Dermot McCullough's biography of Thomas Cranmer, who was the religious authority at the time in Henry VIII's church at the time, and this is a nice big biography of him also from Yale. Then we have a Viking hardcover of Dermot McCullough's Thomas Cromwell biography, who was basically Henry VIII's right-hand man during the time, during the Reformation period, and was also one of the main architects of separating the English Church from the Catholic Church, and the start of Anglicanism. And then we have another English history. So this is Peter Marshall's Heretics and Believers. This is a history of the English Reformation. And just another big fat history on English Reformation. And then the last one here is a very different type of book, a different focus, and it's a lot slimmer, as you can see. It's John Wycliffe and Reform, and it's by John Stacey, and it's just a slim little book focusing on John Wycliffe, who about 100 or 200 years before the actual Reformation, the English Reformation, John Wycliffe held a lot of similar ideas. He just didn't have the same reach, and he was also, I think, protected by an elite nobleman, so he wasn't executed for his views, but he predated a lot of Reformation ideas, and so he's always an interesting figure for historians looking back and trying to see whether or not his ideas were, it was his ideas that ended up growing and into the eventual burst of the Reformation through Martin Luther. And I don't know enough about the history, whether or not there is a direct line, or if it's more or less just coincidence, and that he was seeing similar things that Luther would end up seeing in maybe more exaggerated or more pointed terms. I don't actually know the answer to that question, but here's a short book on him specifically, so that's always nice to have. And then we move away from Reformation history. I don't think I have any more Reformation history, so we move more into just general books on the 16th and the 17th century, and a little bit into the 18th century, I think, or maybe not. Maybe it's just 16th and 17th century history, which includes, say, Enlightenment history and early scientific history. But you'll see what I mean once I go through some of these books. So the first one here is The Ancient Regime in Europe by E.N. Williams, a small mass market here. And it says Government and Society in the Major States from 1648 to 1789. So right before the French Revolution, and it's just a history of that of government and society during that time. I don't know much else about it, other than that it's something I would like to read. And then we have more Pelican histories. That was a Pelican history, but it wasn't in a series. This is a Pelican. These are short Pelican books in a series, which I'll just put on one shelf because it kind of makes sense to have them together. But it's the Pelican History of England. I don't have the whole set. I have volumes 3, 7, and 8. So volume 3, of course, will be early medieval, English society in the early Middle Ages, 1066 to 1307. And it's by Doris Mary Stenton. And, it's just a short history of that period. And we get our author in the back there. And then we have volume 8. This is England in the 19th century, 1815 to 1914. Actually, I think I went out of order. Yeah, I did. I have volume 7 here. So volume 7 is England in the 18th century, 1714 to 1815 by J.H. Plum. And his picture's there on the back. And then we got England in the 19th century by David Thompson. And this is volume 8. And there's no image in the back of our author. They're just short little histories of English, English history of the time. And then we have Kings and Philosophers by Leonard Krieger, and it goes by from 1689 to 1789, so about 100 years. And it's Kings and Philosophers is a nod to the political system, and then, of course, the intellectual system of the day. So this would include some Enlightenment history. And it's just it's a Norton history of Europe. I think, this is part of the Norton history of Europe. So it's an older history book from Norton. When would this one have been published? Does it say? 1970. 1970. And then we have Estrella by Francis Yates, and this is the imperial theme in the 16th century. So the imperial theme would be focusing on kingship and its imperial imagery, I think, or symbolism. Yeah, it says examines the images and symbolism of European monarchy in the 16th century. So we got like the figures of Charles V, and then we got, of course, Elizabeth I, and then, of course, how other people responded to it. So that's this one. This is a Pelican history there. Pelican no, not Pelican, sorry. This is Pimlico. Pimlico has their own line of history books. Or at least they did. I don't know if they still do. And they were known for putting out quality works of history. Then we move back to Blackwell. This is The Birth of Modern Science by Paolo Rossi. And this is a Blackwell published book in their series called The Making of Europe. And this is more what I meant about them translating works of scholarship from other languages into English, because this is translated by Cynthia D. Nardi Ibsen, and I don't know, Italian is what this book was first published in, and it's just a short work on the history of science, or the birth of modern science. And I would like to get this author's biography of Francis Bacon at some point. And then, where do I want to go? I think I'll go with these. I'll go with that one later. But yeah, then we have another book on scientific history. This is The Scientific Renaissance by Mary Boas Hall. And it goes from 1450 to 1630. And it's just about scientific inquiry and scientific development during that time. It's a shorter work too. Then we got some pointed histories. Started off with Europe in the 16th century. It's a nice naked hardcover by David Milland, and it just goes all the way around. It's part of the Macmillan Books in European History. So this is their volume on the 16th century, and you can see a bit of a silhouette of some buildings there, or of a building. And then we have Europe in the 17th century, and this is by D.H. Pennington, and this is from the General History of Europe in the Longman series. So a different publisher, also with their series of European history books, and this is their volume on the 17th century. And the reason why I have such a ragtag collection of, say, Reformation or of European history, or early European history during this time, is because I find most of them used. It's only the English Reformation that I bought a number of those books brand new. That's why they're so concentrated. But most of these are almost all found at the whims of used bookstores, including this one, which is a biography of Elizabeth I by Anne Somerset. It's just a nice, big, whopping biography of Elizabeth I, published in 1991. And then we get more into Enlightenment history. So all the rest of the books on the shelf are from the Enlightenment. I'll start off with one of the older books. So this is The Enlightenment by Norman Hampson. Just a slim little book on the Enlightenment, and it says an evaluation of its assumptions, attitudes, and values. So that sounds interesting. It's another Pelican book design. And then we have The Roads to Modernity, the British, French, and American Enlightenments, and it's by Gertrude Himmelfarb, who is an interesting author if you look up her bibliography of books that she's written. So I have a few of her books, and this is one of them. And it's a very short book for a book that wants to study the British, French, and American Enlightenments. So, and then we get to more scientific history. This is Leviathan and the Air Pump, and it's by Steve Shapin and Simon Schaefer. And then it says Hobbes, Boyle, and the Experimental Life. So I believe it contrasts Thomas Hobbes with Boyle, two major thinkers during this period. It's a classic study of scientific history, published by Princeton University Press. And then we get to Ray Porter's book on the Enlightenment. This is Britain and the Creation of the Modern World by Ray Porter. If you can see the glare there off the title. And yeah, it's just his book on the English Enlightenment. And then he wrote a sequel to it called The Flesh in the Age of Reason. How the Enlightenment transformed the way we see our bodies and souls. And I quite like this cover. Got a lot of mythological imagery going on here. Yeah, so we got a two-volume History of Enlightenment by Ray Porter. And then we get to probably the most most popular modern history of the Enlightenment. This is The Enlightenment, The Pursuit of Happiness by Richie Robertson. And it's just another one of those Penguin Orange Spine books that I really like. And it goes from 1680 to 1790. And this is more just a general book on the Enlightenment. And then we have an image of our author. And also, if any of you are interested, this author is publishing a translation of one of Thomas Mann's novels from the German through Oxford University Press in 2026. And I know it is the same author because I did my research on it. When I was looking at the new releases of Oxford University Press, I saw that they're publishing 3 new volumes of Thomas Mann, which includes, I think he's either doing Buddenbrooks or, what's the other one? Dr. Faustus. They're publishing those 2 of his novels, and he's translating one of them, this guy here. Because that seems to be his area of expertise. See if I can find an author acknowledgement. Yeah, both the author. He is Taylor Professor of German at the University of Oxford. So that's why he's Professor of German. That would explain why he's publishing a translation in his retirement. And then this is the third Blackwell book. This is The Enlightenment by Ulrich M. Hoff. This is also translated. We'll see who the translator is. Translated by William E. Ewell. And the translator, or the original book here is from the German, I think. It doesn't actually tell me. I think it's German. You think that would be obvious because of the name, but I'm always never quite sure about that because I'm just not well versed in that kind of thing. We're almost done here. 3 more books. This is The Age of Genius by A.C. Grayling, and the subtitle here is The 17th Century and the Birth of the Modern Mind. Nice, beautiful hardcover. One of my favorite hardcover designs, where it's got like a cosmic look to it, and then how the words just fill the page very nicely, and then the subtitle in a different color, and then you got that really nice red back. That contrasts again with the cosmic look of the back, where you got all these little stars just dotting on the back here. Very nice hardcover. And then we get another hardcover. This is The Dark Side of the Enlightenment by John V. Fleming. Wizards, Alchemists, and the Spiritual Seekers in the Age of Reason. Another interesting book that takes a contrarian view, or at least a different focus in the normal theme of the Enlightenment. And then the last book, of course, will be the most predictable one. It is The Age of Reason Begins by Will and Ariel Durant. And it's just the classic work on the Enlightenment from their Story of Civilization series. I don't know which volume this one is. I think one of the last volumes. Let's see, 5, 6, 7. Volume 7, I think, according to the number here. But anyways, yeah, that's it for this shelf. That is my shelf on Reformation and Enlightenment books. And I'm not going to waste any more time, and that'll be it for me. Thanks, BookTube.